Hey there, my name's Pete and I like pictures. We're in Lightroom again. What else? And in this video, I'd like to show you a bit about the adjustment brush here, this very cool tool here. In the video before, I talked about how the adjustment brush works. I said that it is sort of the big brother of the radial filter and the graduated filter, and that it is the probably most useful and most versatile tool that we have in Lightroom. And in this video, I'd like to show you how I personally work with the adjustment brush. So the first thing I'll do before I even start working is I take a look at the picture in full screen. You can do that by pressing the letter F. I should talk a bit slower. And you see the picture is already cropped. So I think that this widescreen kind of thingy works quite well for that photo. So what will I do? I will probably darken the foreground a bit because I want my viewer's attention to be drawn more into the center of the photo. I will probably brighten up this part here. I will darken the sky a bit so that it gets a bit more drama. And well, for doing so, pressing F gets you back. I will not only use the adjustment brush, but also use the graduated filter and the radial filter, because in some cases, those two filters are a bit more handy for doing things like that. So the first thing I'll do is I'll darken the foreground. So I'll use the graduated filter, check everything is back at defaults. So I'll create a gradient. Just drag it up and I'll darken the foreground. And I don't know if you have the same feeling as I do, but just by the mere act of darkening the foreground, the picture gets a whole new quality. If you like it or not, it's a different thing, but I think that works pretty well. The thing is, now this part here gets very dark as well, because it was already dark and now it gets darkened even more, but we'll take care about that later. I will darken the sky. What I want to do is I want to darken it in, I don't want to darken the whole sky, but only kind of this area. So I'll take the radial filter and I'll create an ellipse like so. And I'll pull down the exposure. Of course, this part gets darkened as well. Maybe put the feathering down a bit. Yeah, I like it. And I can also increase the clarity. You see, the settings work on the outside of the ellipse and not on the inside. We could make them work on the inside by clicking invert mask, but I won't have it on the inside, so I'll leave it there. I will increase the clarity a bit so that the clouds get a bit more drama. So I like that. The picture itself is now very dark. One thing that I would really strongly advise to do while working with any of these exposure settings or contrast settings, clarity settings, even in the basic tab or with one of those tools, is to always take a look at the histogram. And you see we have no whites or almost no whites at all. And that is not bad, but we have also a lot of shadows. So we can brighten up the shadows a bit by just dragging the shadows up in the histogram or by using in the basic tab the shadow slider. So it gets a bit more equalized. So well, looks good or better, but I think we can even darken the foreground a bit more. And see, the shadows get darkened as well. And I don't want the shadows to be darkened. I want the highlights to be darkened. And so I can raise the shadows a bit. So you see the difference. It gives the picture much more of a more I don't know, I can't express it any differently than that it looks a bit more soft because the contrasts are not that harsh. And we can even try to play with the contrast, set down the contrast a bit. So I guess that, yeah, looks better. Still here it's a bit too dark, and here it's way too dark, and that's where the adjustment brush comes in handy. I'll take a bigger brush and just paint in, and you see nothing because I have nothing changed, but it doesn't matter. I just increase the shadows here because I want the highlights not to be affected, and I don't want the real blacks not to be. Well, I want the blacks to be a bit affected, but we don't have blacks here in these settings. So I'll just increase the shadows, and I'll increase the exposure a tad. So looks good. And just paint in again. And you see, since we have the flow at 100 and the density also at 100, if we paint over an area, it gets brightened again. And I don't want that. So I'll remove these last steps. And I'll set the density to, say, I don't know, let's say 75, something like that, 74, 75. So if we paint over again, these parts won't get lightened more, but it's still too bright. So I'll undo that. And this is something to play around. Well, let's stay at 75. Why? Because I'm just paint in again here. I'll just decrease the exposure a bit. So that's good. I'll make a new adjustment brush, and I want to brighten this part here, only this part. I'll brighten it. It overlaps here, so we can remove this part. And I want to brighten this part again. No, not again, also. That's what I wanted to say. So yeah, looks better. And now I want to kind of shape this bush or tree a bit. So I'll set the exposure down and paint some shadows in it. So we can really create some sort of volume, some sort of texture in this tree. So I think it looks better. This part is way too bright for my taste, so I create a new adjustment brush. We'll just darken this part. And we'll not just darken it with exposure, but also set the highlights down a bit. It's just a tad, it's just a tiny little change, but I think it makes a great impact, or a big impact. So yeah, I think it looks much better than before. So, okay, I want to brighten this part of the track. So I'll create a new adjustment brush. I'll just paint in. And we'll brighten it, we'll brighten it, we'll brighten it. Of course, we see the grass here is also brightened. I don't want that. So I'll just simply erase that here from the grass. So it looks much better. Because I think to emphasize more on the center part of the photo, I guess I'll create a new gradient filter. Do some sort of vignetting, but only on the on the bottom part of the photo. It's like that. Guess looks good. Yeah. The picture itself looks a bit dull, so maybe we'll change something, maybe add a little bit of clarity. If a picture looks dull, adding a bit of clarity can sometimes do a big deal to the photo, and I guess that is, yeah, like that. And we'll increase the whites a bit. So we drag up the whites so we get a bit more contrast in the photo. And that's the cool thing. We can like counterbalance that. We put up the whites and we put down the highlights. So we get more contrast only in the bright areas. Really cool thing. I see now that this part is too dark as well. So I'll brighten this part a bit. And I see, okay, I affect the sky as well. So I can only brighten the shadows. Looks better. As I said in the video about the adjustment brush, I try to avoid the auto mask feature because for me it doesn't really work. So it's most of the time it's more work to remove all of the artifacts that filter created or that thing created than if you do it by hand. So this part is still a bit too bright for my taste. I create a new adjustment brush, and you see I use a lot of instances of the adjustment brush. Okay, I want to change the background a bit. I want to brighten that part a bit. Oh, see, I was still on the same adjustment brush, so I'll just paint in here, brighten this part here, put the highlights down a bit, add maybe a bit of contrast. So what do I want to do? I want to add a bit of a punchiness to the background. I can't explain it any differently. So some more contrast, local contrast. So I'll reset that all and I'll paint in here and I'll just add clarity to the back. It's too much. Also went over the treetops. And I'll increase the brightness of the shadows as well, so it gets more punch. You can just paint in. See, that sometimes I just paint in. I'm not too precise. That is not laziness, by the way. I have this feeling that it gives the picture a bit of an organic quality if you're not too precise, if that makes any sense. Same with paintings, by the way. Like if you see the brush strokes, they give a picture texture and some, yeah, as I said, organic quality. And that's the same thing I do with my photos many times or very often. And yeah, I get that a lot. Like that, your pictures don't look real, and your pictures do look edited or processed. And yes, they do, because that's what I like. And my pictures do not have anything to do with reality, or not a lot. I want to create a feeling, and if that comes across, then fine. And if anyone says like, oh, your pictures don't look real, that's what my uncle once said. So it doesn't look like it was there. I said, you haven't been there. So how can you say that? But yeah, you're right. It doesn't look like it was there, but it looks like I felt at that moment. And that's what I want to recreate. I want to recreate a feeling rather than a documentary style look. But that's just my personal view on things. I don't say it's right, simply because I don't think there is a right or wrong. It's just like I like it or I don't like it. And if I like it, then I'll do it. And if other people like it, hey, I'm happy. If they don't like it, then, well, then I'm sorry, of course. But there are a lot of other fantastic, no, there are not a lot of other fantastic, but there are a lot of fantastic photographers out there who do more like documentary style photography and really realistic style photography. That's not what I do. I can do it, and I proved it numerous times, but I don't want to do it. Simply, I don't want to do it. So, okay, enough rant. So, yeah, in general, I like it. What I don't like is the picture is too dark. So I'll raise the overall exposure a bit and maybe decrease the whites a bit again. And sometimes the colors are not, they look fake to me. So I'll set down the vibrance a bit, or do I put it up? The thing is with those sliders, the best thing you can do is go to the extremes first and then reduce and then go back a lot. And so that is, those very muted colors also do have some sort of a certain quality to them. I like that. And I guess I'll even go with that. And what I do later in a different video, I will give that split toning, but that is a different video. So bye for today. Till next time.